Imagine a retailer so dominant it was called a category killer. More than 1,000 stores, a brand in almost every home, $12 billion a year in sales. Now imagine that same company spending $11.8 billion, all of it buying back its own stock, then borrowing more to keep the spree going, and still ending up in bankruptcy court, shelves bare, CFO gone. On the death certificate, everyone writes the same word, Amazon. But open the case file and you see something different, a business that quietly bled itself dry, one shareholder-friendly decision at a time. This is the autopsy of Bed Bath & Beyond, and of a financial playbook companies are still using today, on businesses that look perfectly healthy. First, how big was this thing really? Bed Bath & Beyond wasn't just a store, it was a category killer. So dominant, it wiped out rivals in home goods. Think of physical Amazon for one aisle of your life. It started in 1971 as a single New Jersey shop. Then, it grew into a monster. More than 1,000 stores. $12 billion moving through it every year. This was not a struggling business. The stores were fine. The products were fine. What broke was the way the company handled its own money. Those are two very different things. To understand how it died, you have to see one thing first. How much money this thing printed. The model was simple, and it was brutal. Huge stores, a massive range of products, solid margins on nearly everything, and a coupon that trained an entire country to come back, year after year. Add the real estate and a brand people actually trusted. You had a business built to last for decades. Honestly, this could have been one of the most boring, durable companies in America. The kind that quietly survives another 50 years. All it had to do was treat that cash like fuel for the future. It didn't. It treated the cash like a piggy bank. And the very first game it played cost more than it would ever owe its creditors. Creditors it still couldn't pay. So, where did all that cash go? Not into the stores. It should have gone into the stuff that keeps a retailer breathing. A better website, faster delivery, lower prices. That's not what happened. Bed Bath & Beyond spent billions buying back its own stock. Understand that one move, and the whole collapse starts to make sense. If you've never dealt with buybacks, here's the short version. A company uses its cash to buy up its own shares. Fewer shares floating around means each one looks more valuable, the stock climbs, and the executives look like geniuses, without selling a single extra towel. But look at what that money didn't do. It didn't open a store. It didn't ship anything faster. It didn't win back one customer from Amazon. It bought applause. Picture a shop owner who drains the register every year, just to brag about how much his house could sell for. Meanwhile, the roof rots and the wiring frays behind him. Rich on paper, one storm from ruin. That's the trap. And Bed Bath & Beyond was about to double down, with money it didn't even have. This is where it stops being reckless and starts being hard to believe. For years, the buybacks at least came out of money the company actually had. Then, in July 2014, the board approved a $2 billion buyback. That fiscal year, Bed Bath & Beyond spent roughly $2.25 billion repurchasing shares. It also raised $1.5 billion by selling bonds. Read that again. It borrowed money while pouring billions into its own stock. That's a second mortgage on the rotting house. Not to fix the roof, to post a bigger number for your friends. And a mortgage doesn't wait. It gets paid every quarter, good year or bad, before you can react to anything else. Once that door was open, it never closed. The company kept buying back shares even as debt remained on its balance sheet, right into 2022, months before the walls came in. So, stack it up. A great retail business at the bottom. Years of cash drained away through buybacks. A pile of debt on top. Alone, each one had a defense. Together, they stripped out every shock absorber the company had, right before everything got harder. Now the road gets rough. This is where a money mistake and an operating mistake collide, and each one makes the other worse. In late 2019, Bed Bath & Beyond hired Mark Tritton away from Target. He came in with a plan that sounded great in a boardroom. Cut the national brands people knew, swap in the company's own private label stuff, and scale back the thing customers loved most, the coupon. Here's what nobody in that room seemed to get. People didn't drive across town for a Bed Bath & Beyond brand. They came for the names they trusted, that specific blender, those specific sheets, and for the coupon that made them feel like they'd beaten the system. Take away the brands and the coupon, and you don't fatten your margins. You erase the two reasons anyone walked in. Shoppers wandered the aisles looking for brands that weren't there anymore, and the timing was cruel. This all landed right as supply chains seized up. By October 2022, 40% of the company's inventory was simply out of stock. Loyal shoppers came in and couldn't find their brand. No coupon. Bare shelves. They never came back. You can see it in the numbers. In the quarter ending August 2022, sales fell 28%. It was the fifth straight quarter of double-digit decline. Revenue slid from over $12 billion a year down to $5.3 billion. Management knew. They promised 10 house brands. They launched 9. They killed 3. They rushed the national names back. Cuisinart, Dyson, Calphalon. The company admitted customers wanted a better balance of owned and national brands. That was the plan they'd spent 3 years destroying. So now the trap snaps shut. The cash was gone. The debt was due. And the one thing holding it all up was shrinking fast. The actual business. Management had scared off the people who paid for everything. Here's the whole collapse in one sentence. A great, cash-rich retailer. Years of that cash drained into buybacks. A pile of debt stacked on top. Then a late pivot that fired the customers. Put it together and you get a company that looks fine in a headline and has no margin for error the second the world shifts. It's not the good years that kill you. It's whether you saved anything for the bad ones. Bed Bath & Beyond saved nothing. It had spent its reserves chasing a higher stock price. So when the bad years came, and they always come, there was nothing left to take the hit. By 2022, the company was cornered. Cash running out, debt coming due, customers walking out the door. Then something bizarre happened, something that had nothing to do with towels or coupons. Bed Bath & Beyond became a meme stock. In the wake of the GameStop frenzy, an army of online traders seized on the ticker. They sent it rocketing, up, then crashing, then up again. Pure casino. Completely detached from the empty shelves in the actual stores. For a minute, the chaos looked like a lifeline. The company used its own soaring stock to raise emergency cash. It bought some time. You can't sell hype forever. Every rescue bought weeks, not years. A new loan, a new share sale, another turnaround plan. The man trying to keep this ship afloat was the chief financial officer. His name was Gustavo Arnal, a respected executive with 2 decades at Procter & Gamble, senior roles at Walgreens and Avon, now working inside a company running out of options. In August 2022, he was named in a lawsuit. It accused him and other large shareholders of a pump and dump, allegedly inflating the stock during the chaos, then selling into it. But it's worth saying plainly, the lawsuit offered no specific evidence against Arnold. His share sales appear to have been made under a pre-arranged trading plan. What comes next is a timeline, not a proven chain of cause and effect. Days later, the company announced it would close 150 stores and lay off about 1/5 of its staff. On September 2nd, 2022, Gustavo Arnal died by suicide. He was 52, a husband, and a father of 2. His death didn't cause the collapse, and nobody can say exactly why he made that choice. But it made something unmistakable that the spreadsheets had buried all along. There were always real people underneath these numbers. So how does a retailer with more than 1,000 stores end up bankrupt? It wasn't the towels. It wasn't even really Amazon. It was a choice, made over and over, year after year, to treat the company like a piggy bank instead of a business, to hand cash to shareholders instead of saving for the storm. And everyone knew the storm would come eventually. When it finally did, there was nothing left to absorb it, just pressure. Landing on the last few people still holding the thing together. The machine was never the problem. The people steering it kept deciding, again and again, that looking rich today mattered more than surviving tomorrow. Want to really see the mistake? Look at who didn't die. Williams-Sonoma, TJX, Ross, same Amazon, same changing habits, same retail apocalypse, all still open today. The ones that survived tended to run a much more boring playbook. Bed Bath & Beyond ran $17 of debt for every dollar of equity. Then it wiped out its equity entirely. Williams-Sonoma returned cash to shareholders too, but it did so while maintaining a stronger operating business. Its digital model expanded, its revenue grew, and its balance sheet never reached Bed Bath & Beyond's level of distress. Most importantly, it protected the thing money can't buy back, the trust of the person walking through the door. None of that makes headlines. Nobody claps for the company that chose survival over spectacle, but that's the whole lesson. In retail, the flashy move is usually the beginning of the end, the buyback, the big pivot, the rush to look like a winner. The boring move is the one still standing 20 years later, One great quarter gets you a headline. 10 careful years gets you a business. So here's the whole thing, start to finish. A company doing $12 billion a year, more than 1,000 stores, a brand in nearly every home in America. It spent more buying back its own stock than it would ever owe its creditors. Creditors it still couldn't pay. Then it borrowed even more. Then it scared off its own customers. It ripped out the brands and the coupon they actually came for. So when the bad years hit, there was nothing left in the tank. Just meme stock gambling, desperate rescue deals, fraud accusations, and enormous pressure on the people still inside, reminding everyone there were real people behind all those numbers. The real story was never on the sales floor. It was up in a spreadsheet, years before the doors ever closed. Here's the uncomfortable part. Bed Bath & Beyond isn't some freak accident. It's a template. Right now, all over the market, companies are doing the exact same thing, draining their cash to prop up their stock, borrowing to keep the number high, picking the applause of this quarter over surviving the next decade. They look healthy today, so did Bed Bath & Beyond, right up until it didn't. Because in the end, Amazon didn't destroy a $12 billion empire. The empire did it to itself, in the way it chose to spend its own money, and in what that choice cost the thousands of people who worked there. A great business is hard to kill from the outside, but almost any business, no matter how big, can be talked into killing itself.